Hello and welcome. This is Michele Christensen of OneNote Worthy Life, and in this video I'm going to show you 3 ways to use OneNote during this current COVID-19 pandemic that may help you stay on top of things, or maybe help you feel like you have a little bit more control over whatever you can control right now. And before I get into the content, I just want to be clear that I don't have any special skills or credentials in the area of mental health, disease, crisis management, medical stuff, anything like that. The things that I'm sharing are just things that I've been doing in OneNote that are helpful right now. And none of these ideas are really specific to a pandemic, but they've just been helpful. They're things that I've noticed have really helped keep my head clear and reduce my stress. I'm filming in OneNote for Windows 10, so if your screen looks a little bit different, it might be because you're using a different version or device. So the 3 things I'm going to show you are shared notebooks, reusable checklists, and the third is kind of more of a tip, which is to write everything down. So the first thing is shared notebooks. OneNote has the ability to allow you to share a notebook with 1 or more people. And this means that the people you share with can either edit or view the notebook depending on what you choose when you shared it. There are lots of ways to use shared notebooks, and I personally love them. My husband and I use shared notebooks for vacation planning and to manage complex home improvement projects. So how could you use shared notebooks right now? Well, you could use shared notebooks to help you connect with people that are either living far away or that you just can't see because of restrictions. If you have family or friends that live far away, you could use a shared notebook for a social use, like sharing your experiences right now, or if there's people you're collaborating on a project with, whether that's for work or for some other purpose, a shared notebook might help you to stay on track and have everyone have access to the same information. Another good use for a shared notebook is to track the health of a family member. So if you have a situation where, like, maybe you have an elderly relative and a few different people are involved in their care, you could use a shared notebook to keep track of everything that's going on with that person. If you're in the position of having to or wanting to plan a trip, once you're able to, you could use a shared notebook for that. If you find yourself working remotely where you didn't before, you might find shared notebooks useful for that. And the final way you might use a shared notebook is for remote schooling, similar to remote working. You might find using a shared notebook might help you there. Although there is an entire feature of OneNote called a classroom notebook that a lot of schools and educators use that's like a superpower shared notebook. That's more for a setting where there's a teacher or a leader and students, though. So I'm going to show you how to share a notebook. You go up to the share icon, which is up here in the upper right. It's about third from the right. And you click it, and you get this drop-down menu. You enter the email address of the person you want to share with, and then this second drop-down menu, you can specify whether they can edit or they can only view. And that's how you share a notebook. So the next thing I want to tell you about is reusable checklists. And I love reusable checklists. I use them all the time. I talk about them a lot. It just helps me feel more on top of things. They're one of my favorite things to do in OneNote. And just to be clear, it's not a specific feature of OneNote. I just save a blank copy of a checklist that I use on a regular basis, and then I make a fresh copy whenever I need it. So a pretty mundane example of this would be when I pack my gym bag for a workout. I do a lot of different kinds of workouts, and I bring different things to each workout. So I have a reusable checklist for everything that I might need, and then I go through and just pack the things I need for that specific workout. So it sounds like a small thing, probably is a small thing, and most people could pack their gym bag correctly most of the time. But anytime you can free up brain power for something better than remembering what to pack in your gym bag is a good thing in my mind. Another point on this is that it saves you some small hassles, like forgetting a hair tie or your water bottle. And obviously these are not a big deal in the grand scheme of life, but again, just using a reusable checklist can save you those little hassles. And for something like a workout, having a hair tie in your water bottle can make a difference in what you get out of the workout. So I just really love reusable checklists. And just to be clear, all the gyms where I live are closed, so I'm not going out to the gym at all right now. So I'm going to show you some examples of reusable checklists. Oops. So this is just what we were talking about, what a reusable checklist is. This is the examples. So you could save you could have a morning routine and evening routine. Those would be just the things you do to start and finish your day. You might have a daily to-do list for work. I use a recurring to-do list for things that I do just to clear the decks. So I check and clear my email, I check all my notifications, check my stats, that kind of thing. Once the decks are cleared, then I feel like I can get into the real work. You might have a cleaning checklist, and that could be like maybe you have one for weekly, one for monthly. This other example, this next one, washing machine maintenance, might seem a little bit vague, but like my washing machine, for example, has a maintenance routine I do every 6 months on it, and it takes maybe an hour or more, and it's like lots of little steps. But rather than trying to remember it or go through, tons of pages in the manual or something, I just have this reusable checklist, and I can just go through it very quickly and easily. And it's something that I do, but not often enough that I remember all the steps. So having that checklist just makes it easier, and I don't have to spend time spinning my wheels thinking about, well, how do I get started? What do I need, etc. In short, anything you do on a regular basis, I would think about trying to create a checklist for, and then reuse it again and again. So I'm going to show you how to create a copy of a checklist. Oops. So I'm going to add a blank page. And now I'm just going to drag this down here. So right here on the right, I have a example of a reusable checklist, which is backing up pictures from my phone to my internal hard drive. And in this case, what you see popping up now is a text container. It's got the gray bar on the top and then the square around it. So that's just what OneNote calls the box that holds the text. And in this case, the box only has the checklist in it. So I could use my mouse and highlight everything in the checklist and copy it. But in this case, since the text container only has my checklist, I'm just going to highlight that whole thing and right-click it. And I'm going to click Copy. And I'm going to go to my blank page, click somewhere in the middle here, and I'm going to paste it. Now I have a blank copy to work with. So the next tip is to write it all down, and it's not specific to the current situation, but I feel like it's just such a helpful life practice, and I'm definitely not the first person to suggest this. There's tons of people that talk about this, and there's great information on why the idea of writing things down can be helpful. I find that it's helpful in times that may be anxiety producing or times that cause me to have a lot more on my mind. The more I can focus on writing things down, getting it out of my head, it just helps clear my head and make me feel more focused. So the first bullet point I have is that there's lots of reasons to do this, and one example I have for you I got from the book and productivity system called Getting Things Done by David Allen. And in that book, the author, David Allen, describes having a trusted system, and in this case it could be OneNote, to hold all of your stuff. And by stuff, we mean like just anything that takes up space in your brain. It could be things you need to do, things you want to do, trips you may want to take, something you want to buy, something you want information on. Like all that stuff we try and remember. Just write it all down into a system where you know it's not going to get lost, and then you can stop thinking about it. When you get it out of your head and into your system, this frees up whatever mental bandwidth that you have to work on other things. And one of my favorite things that David Allen said in that book is that your mind is for having ideas, not holding them. Along those lines, writing things down may help you get it off your mind. I find that as I go through my day, I have a section on my daily page where I just make little notes of things. And if something catches my eye, but I'm in the middle of something else, instead of going down a rabbit hole to explore it at that moment, I'll just write it down and know that I can come back to it later. So If you are writing things down and you're not trying to remember things, you can free up all the brain power you were using to remember things. Like instead of writing, if you think about something simple like a grocery list, if you've got 3 or 5 or 20 things on your grocery list, that's using up space in your brain that could be used for other things. So just write it down. Finally, it may help ease some of the worry about forgetting things. I find that, like, say I'm in a social situation and I'm talking to someone and they say, "Oh, can you send me a copy of that?" If I say yes, I like to honor my word, and so that thing will stay on my mind because I'm like, don't forget, don't forget, don't forget, and it actually impedes me from being present in whatever I'm doing. So I usually will take a minute and write it down so that I can set it aside and go back to what I'm doing with a full, clear head. So I'm going to give you some examples of things that you could write down right now. This first one is impulse buys. So being at home 24/7, except for a few outdoor excursions and some essential trips, means that a lot of us, including myself, are spending a lot more time online than we ever have. Now, I've noticed that I'm getting tempted to make a lot more impulse buys now that I'm being exposed to more advertisements, and I'm also not getting the external stimulation and satisfaction from my normal activities. Sometimes I'm tempted to make an impulse buy for something that I don't really need and probably wouldn't buy if I wasn't cooped up and spending too much time in front of my computer. Instead of buying the thing right away, I've been making a note of it in OneNote on my daily page, and then I know I can go back to it if that desire for that thing is still there in a few days or weeks. So not only does this save me money, but it also saves me the stress over having, packages arrive and then you got to unbox the thing and dispose of the packaging and find a home for that thing in your house. And you might even be adding clutter to your house. So to me, avoiding impulse buys is a great reason to write things down. So another thing you could write down is a list of projects that you want to tackle right now. For many of us, this is such a unique time in that we're home a lot and we might not have a lot of things scheduled. So you might have a lot of flexibility and freedom. No, you might not, too. I recognize that there's people that are suddenly responsible for supervising their kids' schooling, or we have our healthcare workers and other essential workers out there working harder than ever. But if you do find yourself at home with time that's not scheduled for anything, you might be able to tackle some projects right now that you couldn't get to otherwise. One friend of mine is doing a deep clean on her house by tackling one thing each day. So I'm thinking of doing some projects I've been putting off till someday because I'm kind of thinking like, wow, like today is a perfect someday. So, of course, I always want to keep a written to-do list. I just think it's really important, and there's so much information about the right way, the best way, whatever. So, um, I think the point is just to make sure you have a to-do list. If you're trying to work from your head or work from what's in front of you, what's in your email box, it's hard to really prioritize and manage. But if you can write it down, you can see what's in front of you and prioritize it and maybe move things around and move it to another day and that kind of thing. I think one of the worst uses of your magnificent brain is to have it scanning your environment, desperately trying to remember all the little odds and ends that you had a passing thought about and may need to do. Write it down, and then you can prioritize and manage what really needs to get done. So you might want to have a list of things to do once the stay-at-home order ends and or life returns to normal. We're in this situation for an unknown period of time, and I know, at least for me, there's a lot of things that I would love to do right now that I can't. So I'm keeping a list of things that I'm looking forward to doing once I can. This might help you maintain a positive outlook because you'll have something to look forward to once the situation allows it. So another page I've created is a list for coronavirus and COVID-19 stats that I like to look at. Although I do pay attention to the news and I try and get my news from a variety of sources, when it comes to statistics and information around the number of cases and the spread and the percentages and things like that, I want that information directly from the source. So I have a page where I've bookmarked sites like the CDC in the US and the California Department of Public Health. Those are two of the sites that I'm getting my statistics from. By having a page with all of those sites linked on it, I can just open that page whenever I want to get an update, and by going to the same sources over and over again, I know that at least I'm getting consistent information, even if there are inherent reporting errors. So the next item is if you or a family member is having a medical issue, whether it's COVID-19 related or not, you can start writing down all the symptoms, medicines, things that have been helpful, timelines, anything that might be helpful to medical professionals at some point. And I kind of alluded to this earlier with the shared notebooks. I started doing this a long time ago when I was with a family member going through a medical issue, and just having one place to write everything down was really helpful. I'm sure you're familiar with the concept of white coat anxiety, where you have a bunch of things you want to ask or tell your doctor or medical professional, and you get into the office and suddenly you can't remember a single thing. And then having one single place to write down all that stuff, as well as take notes of what is said in appointments, can make a scary or difficult medical situation less scary and help you manage it better. In short, write down anything that's taking up space in your head and could be stored elsewhere. So that's it. That's 3 things you can be doing in OneNote during the current COVID pandemic that may help you feel a little bit less stressed, or maybe have a little bit easier time of it. I hope this video was at least somewhat helpful, and if you have any tips to add, please add them in the comments so that we can all see it and help each other out. If you like this, please let me know by hitting the thumbs up button, and if you want to see more videos like this, as well as videos on productivity, life management, and of course my favorite OneNote tutorials, hit subscribe, and you'll be subscribed to my channel. Thanks so much for watching, and have a great day. Stay safe and be well. Bye-bye.